So I will start with a quick intro to everybody who's going to join for the webinar. We will then kind of cover a little bit about high level about Versori and a little bit of high level about our partner BigTime. And then we're just going to get stuck in and walk through a bit of a demo of how we build ADP BigTime integration. And then Sian at BigTime is going to kindly hop on and walk through what that integration would actually look like in reality with it functioning. That should all take about 20 minutes. And then we're going to give 10 minutes at the end for questions. If you have any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat as we go along. We'll kind of answer them as we go. And then we have myself, I can answer kind of most of the questions. And then Will, who's our COO and leads delivery, so he can answer any of the more technical questions. To start, I want to give everybody a chance to give a quick intro. So I don't know if Will, if you want to kick us off.
Sure, George. Thank you. So I'm Will Jackson. As George mentioned, I'm COO at Versori. So been here for just over a year now. I'm primarily focused on heading up our delivery function alongside a lot of other kind of core operational responsibilities. Prior to that, I started at Accenture as a tech delivery consultant, predominantly in financial services. Did a lot of regulatory work, big focus around kind of open banking and payment services directive, and ended up heading API for Barclays Bank after working on a project there with Accenture. And then of all places, moved to the National Health Service in England to be head of API and platform engineering there. So always had kind of interoperable tech at the core of what I've worked on. And then just wanted to do something a bit more exciting and less kind of big enterprise business, which is why I chose to move over to Versori. I think that's me in a nutshell, George.
Awesome. And then Sian, do you want to hop in and maybe give an intro to yourself, but also a quick intro about BigTime and what you guys do as a software company?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, George. Like George said, my name is Cyan. I'm a solutions consultant here at BigTime Software. A little bit about me, I've been with the company for a little bit over 3 years, started on the support team, moved over to implementation. So more of our post-sales side of things. Now I'm on the solutions consultant side, pre-sales things. A little bit about BigTime. We are an AI-powered software for professional services. We make sure that you can get your time and billing done. We help streamline your processes all the way from tracking time, billing, resource management, even integrating with account softwares just to make sure you can get everything done pretty smoothly. So yeah, really excited to be a part of this today.
Awesome. So I think to start, I'm going to give a bit of outline about what Versori does, to kind of the relevance of BigTime in our kind of the work we do with ADP, and then we're going to hop into a quick demo of how we build an ADP BigTime integration. So Versori is an AI-enabled integration platform. What that means is we use a series of different AI tools, from agents to kind of models that we built in-house, to build integrations. And the ultimate goal is to be able to build a fully custom enterprise-grade integration that we can design, build, test, deploy, host, and maintain. But instead of that being a 2, 3, 6-month process and costing tens of thousands of dollars, we can build an integration in a couple of hours for a simple integration to a couple of days for a more complex integration. And ultimately, because we can build so fast, we can offer that at a much lower cost than traditional to the market. We've been partnered with BigTime for about 6 to 7 months now. And a lot of the work we do with BigTime is working with their sales teams to enable their account executives and implementation teams to offer fully custom integrations to their customers without the barrier of cost and time. The goal is for BigTime, it allows them to sell more accounts and sell those accounts with smoother implementation. For the customers, they get an exact integration that performs right as they need it to, rather than something that's kind of 80% what they want. And of course, the two then ensure that BigTime is implemented in the most optimum way for that customer. One of BigTime's customers' favorite integrations to request is ADP. And so ADP, of course, sits critical to the tech stack, providing the kind of HR services necessary for a lot of these professional services organizations to function. And a lot of the time, we're moving things like timesheets and PTO requests between BigTime and ADP in both directions. So the demo we're going to walk through today covers both those workflows in that process. I'm going to hop in and give a quick 5-minute demo about how we would go about building the integration in Versori. I'm also going to let Will touch on some of the nuances of how we handle ADP's authentication. ADP, it's fair to say, ADP does not have a very standard auth approach. And then I'm going to let Cyan take over and walk through a demo of how ADP, once triggered, then appears in the BigTime platform, so you can actually see the end result of the integration. So let me just share my screen. So to start with, of course, the initial piece of building an integration is actually understanding what you want to build. And that's where often you have to go to a solution architect. That solution architect needs to understand what workflows you're going to use or what workflows you want to implement. So in this case, for instance, we want PTO, when it's entered in BigTime in ADP, to be pushed to BigTime and appear in BigTime's timesheet so people can't book into that PTO time. The solution architect then traditionally would have to go read the documentation associated with each system, understand how they're going to build the integration, and that can take weeks before you even begin building the integration. So the first step of Versori is actually to automate a lot of this. And so you can see here, I fed in a basic concept for our integration. It just walks through some of the workflows. You can actually, this is a fairly long example, but this can actually be generated just with a simple like ChatGPT or Anthropic input. And so we then put this in here, and our platform is beginning to conduct the research necessary to understand what to build. And so I won't walk through this in too much detail because it takes a little bit of time. But effectively, we have a series of research agents in the background that are searching the internet, searching our existing database of over 5,000 systems, and beginning to understand, okay, which APIs do I need to use? What endpoints in those APIs do I need to use? How is that going to work relative to the logic of the integration? And at a technical level, what might I need to consider? For instance, API rate limits. From here, we can then generate a solution document. So I'm actually going to generate a solution document and the workflows. And what that's going to do is it's going to give me the outline necessary to input into the system. And so we'll give that a minute just to generate. The important step here is we need to give the system as much information as possible to build the integration. And so by having it do the research and generate the document, we not only expedite the build process, but we also expedite the solution architecture process at the beginning. So we'll give this a minute just to run through.
George, while that's running, do you want to click through onto the findings tab and just show the output file?
So as the platform's going through and beginning to build out that solutions document, it takes all the findings and begins to condense them into a set of documents that are much easier to consume as a user of the platform. And so you'll see here a solution architect can come in and review all the information that it's found and begin to ensure that everything is as expected before committing to development. So you'll see here, it's looked at the data source. It's picked up the fact that it's Workforce Now. And in particular, it's picked up which API we're going to need for PTO requests. It's also begun to identify things like what authentication method. And even I mentioned the complexities of ADP's authentication, the fact that it runs on a mutual TLS. And we can get a little more into that later on. So once you have this, it will also then begin to highlight any questions where it feels like there might be some lack of clarity around what we're trying to build. And normally we can go into these, we can answer these, we can give it more clarity to support it in producing a more accurate integration. Now, the second thing it's doing is it's also producing the workflows. And so the workflows are what I'll then take and pass into the integration to actually write the integration code. So we're just going to give that a minute to run. While we're doing that, Will, do you want to explain the nuances of ADP's authentication, particularly around MTLS?
Yeah, of course. Thanks, George. So I think kind of George mentioned at the top of the call around our goal as Versori is to have fully integrations for our end users that are built quickly and in a kind of financially viable way. So there's a lot of kind of iPaaS companies out there that'll have a concept of off-the-shelf integrations where they define what they know to be commonly used workflows, and they will build out almost like a static integration for that specific use case. Obviously, that has restrictions to the customer, and if they have any customization or nuances in their source and target system, it might not be aware of those, and it won't be able to accommodate them. So to George's point around the 80% model, we're very clear on the fact that we want to build these things to be 100% to our customers' requirements. And that's where ADP fits quite nicely, because it is a nuanced system, particularly from a security perspective. So a lot of those systems that do that more off-the-shelf model tend to struggle with ADP because of the concept of TLS and signed certs. So as well as the OAuth2 authentication with ADP, you also have to provide a certificate with your request, which then goes to ADP and gets signed. And you have to provide that signed cert alongside your API key for authentication. So it's something that's very much kind of not an out-the-box kind of auth method. It's an additional security layer on top of auth. Because of how Versori is built and because of how adaptable we are to things like this, it allows us to support that real time with no additional constraints and no additional cost to the customer. That's one of the main reasons we chose to use ADP as this demo with BigTime, because of that nuance around that kind of certification layer. I think that's a key thing to touch on there. There is also, just going back to the kind of customization element, how people kind of structure PTO and manage the project alignment that Cyan referred to in terms of how BigTime is frequently used from a professional services perspective. There'll be a lot of differing structures in how projects are set up, how time management is handled, how resources are booked, a lot of nuances with different resources working a different hourly profile in our day, whether it's a standard 8 hours or something shorter. And again, out-the-box integrations will really struggle to handle those nuances, which is why our partnership with BigTime is so fruitful, because we can quickly accommodate these slightly different approaches and give Cyan and team the confidence that we're able to provide their customer exactly what they need to fit their requirements.
Cool. So we're going to, the core platform right now is running in the background, generating the workflows. And as you can see, this can actually take a couple of minutes simply because of the level of reasoning going through, kind of pull through the nuances of each workflow. So prior to this call, we actually set up another example. So it's been running in the background for about 20 minutes. This one has gone through and actually assembled the workflows ahead of time. So this is the eventual outcome we'll get to, is it will put together each workflow that we need to build the integration as a whole. So you can see here, it's looked at syncing approved PTO requests. So when a PTO is approved in ADP, pushing it to BigTime. It's actually even looked at handling those for partial day PTO requests, which we can get to in a minute, but actually requires a slightly different workflow in BigTime. It's looked at modifying PTO requests, mapping employees between systems that ensures both systems know which employees they're looking at and have the unique identifier lined up. And it's even looked at handling historical PTO. So when we initially turn on the integration, we want to make sure there's no skewed information as a result of PTO already existing in one system and not the other. And so it will handle the initial onboarding of the integration. What I've done from here is I've gone to each one. I've copy and pasted it, so we can just copy it here. And as I said, it writes the prompt for you. I've then inputted these into the system and then told the Versori platform to write the integration. So the building of the integration in Versori, we actually look at in the code window. And so Versori will produce the integrations in a few different formats. Initially, it will produce the integration in a low-code format. This is not technically helpful, but allows you to visually see how the integration is flowing. So we can see here that it's syncing on a schedule. It's fetching a ADP PTO requests. It's then fetching the BigTime users and using that to identify the unique record or the unique employee it's associated to, mapping and transforming it to BigTime's PTO entries, and then pushing it to BigTime. Once it's in BigTime, it will then appear in the relevant timesheet, which we can show in a second. Now, you'll see here it's also pulled the webhooks. So what this is allowing us to do is we can either run the system once an hour, once a day, or we can run it immediately when the event happens, i.e. when someone inputs PTO and that PTO is approved. Now, the platform will then also produce the integration in code. The reason that's very beneficial is most other integration platforms, you are dependent on a low-code environment. That low-code environment quickly reaches its limit when you want to do something that's very custom. And in the example of partnering with a sales team where you're supporting the implementation of products, customers want a workflow and an integration that is exact to their requirements. And so by putting it in code, we can actually give our developers or a third-party developer, whoever's building the integration, full autonomy to build the integration exact to requirements. Once this is outputted, really all that's left is for that individual, that engineer, to test the integration and then deploy the integration. And so the Versori platform also provides the apparatus to test and deploy. And so from here, we would auth into each individual system. You can see here, ADP Workforce Now uses authorization code. We've got the URLs, and we can individually add connections here. So we can individually add each user of the integration or deploy the integration in what we call embedded format, meaning multiple people can use the integration at once. And again, for BigTime here. So BigTime runs on API key. So an engineer can come in, input this information, connect to each system, run a series of test data to test the integration, make any edits directly in the code. And then once that's complete, it's as simple as hitting deploy, and the integration is ready to function. Now, once the integration is deployed, in the event of any errors or any kind of issues with the integration, anyone can come back into the Versori platform and see the running of the integration within the logs. And we provide a series of pre-built integrations to support testing and debugging in the event of an error with the integration flow once it's deployed. So I think that covers everything high level with Versori. As you can see, the platform allows us to automate and augment the work necessary for the design phase. That was the research agent. For the development phase, that's the coding and the flow and the architecture diagrams. And then to massively simplify deployment, and once deployed, also simplify the process of logging any errors that might occur in the integration. And that's all condensed into one platform, whereas previously you would have had to have an integration platform, some form of logging system like Datadog, and then also a solution architect do the design phase and the research, often manually by hand. We're now just going to prove that this actually all functions as an integration. And so I'm going to pull up here. So this is ADP. In this ADP environment, I've inputted a number of different PTO requests, and we've approved those in the backend just to make the integration trigger. So this is actually the process we might go through during the testing phase. So we'd input some fake data, make the integration function. And so in this case, we're going to trigger the webhook and then check everything appears in BigTime. I'm now going to hop over and let Cyan take over and walk through showing you how that would then appear in BigTime.
Cool. Thanks, George. Sweet. So once it's in BigTime, it's made its way to Foresight. So a few things that we'll see once it's in our system is the status of the PTO request, whether it's been accepted, rejected, or it's pending. We can see who the staff is that made the request, who approved the request, the date, even the amount requested. And if it's in the future, we'll see how many days out it is. And then, of course, we get to see any notes. What you're seeing here is we're able to filter by certain criteria that our customers can actually configure and customize themselves. So we're able to see by department or by role. Now, this is all great for planning, but what's happening on the back end is folks have already just requested the time off in ADP. So they no longer have to come into Foresight to do it and do it in their resource management software. It's done for them thanks to the help of Versori, right? So streamlining this process. And it's great for admins, staff managers, and project managers to really see all of this happening in real time. Now, as far as planning goes, where we can step in help is you'll see this is a team calendar where you'll see at the top, this is all the work I'm doing, all the projects I've been assigned to, and my utilization is impacted by that time off that I've input, as well as any holidays, right? So this is great for planning for, again, team leads, project managers, staff managers to see who's going to be out. And then without even leaving this sort of view, we're able to prepare ahead of time for anyone that's going to be out. We've got some projects in the pipeline. We got to assign those out and resource these projects, but who do we have in the coming days, weeks, or months that's going to be out? Again, a common theme you'll see is we're able to filter by certain criteria. So if we want to see by location, we've got a Poland team, we've got a Boston team. I want to see who's going to be out and what their availability is if I've got a bigger project in the pipeline, right? So that's foresight. Something that George on already is that ADP time off requests does automatically put the timesheet request on the respective timesheet. So you'll see this is mine here. I've got the internal admin project, my PTO type, and then even those notes came over, right? So that's still a few days out. It's already in there for me, so I can forget about it. It's already been approved. And now for payroll reporting, we've got great reports that we can filter to include or exclude any data we don't want to see. So for our HR admins, they're able to pull a report that simply shows them either all time on, time in their timesheets, or just time off, right? What you'll see is we can pull like the approval date, the notes. There's a lot of other information we can quickly pull here, but that really streamlines the process for our entire team, just being able to request time off once and then seeing the output of it all.
Awesome. And thanks so much for the demo. Really appreciate it. And so just to summarize, that's really how we go end to end for an ADP integration. We're able to use the Versori platform to automate a lot of the research necessary to even begin building an integration. What do you want to build? How are you going to build it? How is each API actually going to affect what you're going to build? We are then able to automate the build process. What normally takes weeks, we can augment an engineer down to kind of hours to days. Either that's via a Versori engineer directly or via a third-party engineer who can use the Versori platform. And then it's about building, about testing, deploying, and maintaining that integration. And so once we've tested the integration directly in the Versori platform, this is where, as Cyan showed, it would be pushed live, and the integration would then simply function in the background without anybody needing to input anything to make that integration function, running simply off the webhooks that come in via ADP. And that integration can be made to be bidirectional. So if you wanted ADP to trigger into BigTime and then BigTime to trigger back to ADP, that can also then be added directly in the Versori platform. I think that wraps everything for today. If people have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat. We're happy to cover kind of anything to do with really any aspect of Versori, technical or otherwise. And if you have any questions on BigTime as a PSA solution, definitely feel free to drop them in the chat. I'm also happy to connect you with the BigTime team after the webinar's done.